So we've all been to those street fairs where the bottles are hanging and they're turned into glassware and cups and mugs and candle holders. Well, there's pretty much one guy behind all of that. His name is Patrick Lahoux, and he is the creator and founder of BottleCutting.com. And it's this ingenious device that allows you to take glass bottles and cut them really in half, or I guess three quarters, whichever way you want, and keep it really smooth. It's really a heck of a product. And would you believe that product has sold millions of dollars? See, you think it's one of those little knickknacks, but once you find something that really corners a market, that's where you want to be. And Patrick has managed to take Shopify and Amazon and e-commerce and turn this into a massive business. He's a lifelong entrepreneur, and he's our guest today on the Amazon Fanatics program. I am your host, Justin Simon, and I want to dive right in. Patrick, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a little backstory of how you got started with BottleCutting.com, how you started your business, and what was the impetus for this product?
Sure. So, BottleCutting.com actually didn't start off as that. It was more of, it used to be called the Kinkajou.com. And the Kinkajou bottle cutter was kind of the initial product that started BottleCutting.com. But if we go back about 3.5 years, almost 4 years now, I did a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter was for the Kinkajou bottle cutter. It was a 30-day Kickstarter. It raised about $80,000. My goal was 75, and that's kind of how it all got started.
Well, why was the Kickstarter experience so important for you?
Back then, Kickstarter was fairly new, so it was getting a lot of press. The Pebble watch had just been funded. Their first Kickstarter, and as an entrepreneur, it just kind of blew my mind. Like, wow, look at this site where you can actually get money for your company, not give up equity, and kickstart something. So it's the whole thing actually started with me wanting to do a Kickstarter and not so much even start a company. I kind of just wanted a Kickstarter experience.
Why was that important to you?
So I'm a bit of a junkie for new experiences, and I get pretty passionate about things fairly quickly. So it was literally a Sunday afternoon when I discovered Kickstarter. Sunday night I decided I'm doing Kickstarter. I just needed an idea. I had nothing really, anything I had done before was not product based. On the Monday, I spent the whole day just surfing the web, YouTube, and just trying to get some ideas. I came up with a few ideas, but the bottle cutter was really one that could be executed fairly quickly. And so that Monday I decided, okay, I'm doing the bottle cutter. And 20 days later, I was on Kickstarter.
And so now you reach your Kickstarter goals and you've got this product. What was it like to source the product and actually get it created?
So I was very naive about all of it because, I didn't really give it a lot of thought in those 20 days. I had a plan. My original plan was to have something manufactured in North America. The whole idea of going to Asia seemed daunting, and you hear all these horror stories. And because I was trying to do it so quickly, I didn't even consider it. And so I halfway through my Kickstarters, through the Kickstarter, several Asian companies started reaching out to me saying, hey, we could build this for you. The first one, the gentleman spoke no English. The second one, he spoke English, but clearly did not understand. I felt like I could ask for anything, and he would just say, yeah, no problem, I can do that. And it wasn't a warm, fuzzy feeling. And then the third gentleman who reached out to me was actually an American who had been living in China for almost 20 years. And he had done other Kickstarters, build products for other Kickstarters. So it was just right away, it was a much better fit. And that gentleman, was very fortunate that we connected because he gave me an education real quick on how naive I was about building products. I think people really underestimate what it takes to put out a product. So with his guidance, we were able to get it done in about 4.5 months.
Yeah, we talked to people in China before, and we hear this from a lot of our customers where they'll call over a factory, they'll speak to somebody there, and they'll say, hey, can you make this? Yeah, absolutely. Well, can you ship it here? I have no problem. Oh, can you create the molds for it? Yeah, absolutely. Is there any problem? We're going to have it all. No, we're good. Can you create Nikes? Yeah, for sure. Could you create an Apple computer? Yeah, no problem. And so there's concern that they just say yes to everything, regardless of whether or not they have that ability.
They have a saying like they say yeah, no problem. They say it a lot, and it's like I don't think they really. I think it's just something they say. They don't really like understand what it means, or they understand and they're just not being truthful. But yeah, so meeting this gentleman definitely changed things, made things a lot easier. And I was naive. I was gonna, have so the Kinkajou itself, the design had almost 60 parts between everything that's in there, and I was gonna have one mold made in North America and source all the other parts aftermarket, and literally assemble this in my garage and ship it out on weekends. This is very small scale stuff. And then when I met this gentleman, he's like, okay, first of all, no, that's not going to work. You if you think you're going to be able to get this wheel that you're using now in 2 years, what happens if it disappears and then you can't build this thing anymore? So he convinced me to manufacture every part. So it ended up we went from one mold to I think 11 or 12 molds for everything, and it was more money up front, but it definitely now I had full control. These molds are good for millions of pieces, and so now I was like, okay, now I'm in control. And then he said this whole thing about assembling. He's like, why would you even do that to yourself? Let us do it. We'll do all the packaging. We'll ship it to a fulfillment center, and you don't even need to touch it. And I was like, okay, well that makes more sense. And so, and the funny thing is, I really after the Kickstarter was done, I was having this built. I actually took another job, and by all standards, for most people would think would be a dream job. And I'm working away at that job, and I'm getting emails every day. I missed your Kickstarter. Can I pre-order it? And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I'll have a few extra. So I put up a website on Shopify and started taking pre-orders. Well, it took 4.5 months to build it. And in those 4.5 months, I took $250,000 worth of pre-orders. So now I had a product that no one had even touched yet. It had raised over 300,000. So I was like, okay, well, obviously there's a business here. And I quit that other job and then been doing this full time ever since.
Patrick, let's talk about Shopify and your experience with setting up your site, setting up your store, and the process with which you went through to do that. Did you find that using Shopify gave you the control you were looking for your business?
So it took a while. You can just grab one of these free themes, put up a store. That's kind of what I had done. But then the more you get into it, you start realizing, oh, it'd be great to have this feature. And now Shopify has amazing apps, and there's new apps coming out every day that just kind of, help the experience. But I feel like there's always something you would want that you just can't find in a theme or in an app. And we ended up contracting a company out of the West Coast, and they're what's called Shopify experts, and they build in 15-minute increments. So we buy 8 hours at a time or 10 hours at a time, and it's a great system. I just email them with a change, it creates a ticket, and the change is usually done within maybe a day at the most, two if it's a weekend.
We're talking to Patrick Lahoux here on the Amazon Fanatics program. He is the founder and creator of bottlecutter.com. Now, Patrick, when we were doing our research, we read that you change your website every single year. Is that true? And why?
Yeah, so this is we're a bit late this year, just because we had some events happen. They're all good. It just took us by surprise. Yeah, so I'm we don't have a storefront, and when you think of retail space, the way I think of it, you take like a store like Urban Outfitters, or they have a feel to them, but they're always keeping it fresh, and they might not do it every year, but definitely they're on they'll do a complete rehaul of their look every few years. And we don't have a store. All we have is this online presence. And I feel like the best way to keep that fresh is every year, just don't change a color, but, spend the time, spend the money, and do a whole new redesign. Like a lot of the elements stay in the way that the product flows through the site. What might stay the same, but definitely bring some fresh blood into it.
Now, as far as ROI on changing the website that often, have you found that has value? Have you found that it's a good return on your time, on the details that it requires to redo a website every year? And do you add in the new website with a launched Facebook campaign or an advertising campaign specifically around the launch of the new website?
Yeah, well, it's hard to measure, right? So we time our website redesign with the fall, so that Christmas time is always new, basically. So, and while the business has been running almost 4 years now, every year we've grown. So I feel like we still don't have enough data to know, is it really making a difference? Would it have just happened on its own? But I do. I just have a gut feeling that it's for us. It's important, and yeah, I know when I visit sites, if it's a site I'm going to visit more than once, you get a better feeling when it's updated and refreshed, and the content is fresh. You know, if you're going to start a blog, well, then you need to be blogging. You can't go on there and there hasn't been a blog in 10 months. It just doesn't give a very good feeling. So we're very active on social media, which is tied back into our site, and we're always updating pictures, and then the website once a year. I feel like, and you go back 4 years ago, while there was a trend to mobile, 90% of my traffic now is now mobile. So if I still had my site from 4 years ago, I know for sure on that point it was never really designed for mobile. Now we design sites for mobile first, and it's easy to make a desktop version look nice. It's the mobile that's tough because there's so little real estate on that screen that you have to really think about it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Patrick. Amazon is seeing such a huge increase in mobile sales, in tablet sales, through the one-click button and the mobile app, and they just keep pushing mobile. How have you found your experience thus far as a seller with Amazon to be?
So Amazon, I feel, is the necessary evil. I feel they're very big, and they don't have any issues pushing their weight around. Their fees are not the best, but you almost have no choice but to deal with them. So here in the United States, we don't fulfill by Amazon. We fulfill ourselves. So the warehouse that we use, it has a connector to Amazon, so it's all automated and shipments get out the same day. So it doesn't a lot of the headaches that people associate with Amazon fulfilling themselves, we don't really have because our fulfillment house can keep up. And in Europe, we're in all seven Amazon spaces out there, and we do fulfillment by Amazon, and it works. So to give you an example, we were resistant to jump on Amazon for a long time, and I wasn't sure why. It was just kind of one of these things we needed to do, and we didn't do it. And then when we did, all we did was literally put up 5 products, connected it to our website or to our fulfillment house, and right away we were generating sales about $50,000 a month from Amazon. And we do a little bit of Amazon, sponsored products, a little bit of advertising. But what I've noticed is whenever we push, so the large majority of our advertising is through Facebook that directs people to our own site, which is bottle cutting. But every time we do a large push on Facebook, we see an increase in Amazon traffic or Amazon sales. And what I think is happening there is there are some people who are Amazon Prime customers or Amazon. They're very familiar and comfortable with the Amazon experience. And when they see something, they might visit our site, but they'll check Amazon to see if it's available there. And I think that's what's happening.
Well, and we hear that a lot. Some of that is the A to Z guarantee. Some of that is prime shipping. Some of that is just their credit card information is already locked and loaded, and their shipping information, and so they don't really care if it's where they're buying it so much as far as its ease of use and a guarantee. There's a trust factor there. Now, it's interesting that you expanded into Europe. Have you found a difference in the way you have to approach the advertising between the markets?
Yeah, so Facebook is what we use. And when we started doing Facebook ads 4 years ago, while there was a lot of activity, it's not saturated like it is now in the US. So the metric that we're always measuring is cost per click. Our cost per click back then used to be like 7 cents. It was dirt cheap to drive traffic. Our cost per click now might be up into 30 cents, and then at Christmas time even higher. That's in the US. Well, what we're finding in Europe is that it's not saturated there. So you can easily get cost per clicks 7 cents, 8 cents, 9 cents. Now, the downfall of all that is because you're directing traffic to an Amazon store that's not your own, you have no real way of measuring uh, the conversion rate because Facebook and Amazon don't really talk that way.
Right.
So, but we know we put money in Facebook, it generates Amazon sales. We stop money in Facebook, Amazon sales stop. So there's a correlation there that's hard to measure, but it's there.
We're talking to Patrick Lahoux of bottlecutting.com. Now, Patrick, there are a lot of people we talk to who are private labelers and want to be an Amazon sellers, and they're trying to figure out the best way to use Amazon, Facebook, and Facebook ads and sponsored posts. What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Start small and test a lot. I remember when we first started doing Facebook ads, I think we were doing $20 a day. That went to $30 a day, eventually crossed over $100 a day. And now we do on average about $2,000 a day in Facebook. And come Christmas time, we've had days during the holidays where we've done $30,000, $40,000 a day in Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the return is there. So, and when I say about testing is, you launch, you pick your audience, and then you launch several ads in there, and then you let the ads fight themselves out. And then one ad will do better. You turn off the other two, and then you look at that ad, and then you might create a new ad that's similar to that one with a couple words changed. And I find in the beginning you can get it, you can dial in pretty quick. But what happens in the long run, and it's happening to us. Last year we've spent, I don't know, maybe $600,000 in Facebook, and you tend to when you're spending small, the audience sizes are massive, and you're never going to exhaust them. But when you start spending bigger amounts, the next challenge is always trying to find new audiences that are relevant. Now, bottle cutting is a pretty niche thing, so it's not like I can just target everybody. So for us, that's one of our current challenges is we'll build an audience of 10 million people, but it doesn't take us long at $2,000 a day to rip through that several million audience size.
Well, and you have other products that are coming up. Can you talk a little bit about the other products?
Yeah. So, are you referring to within the bottle cutting space or outside of the space? Okay. So, the other thing I've learned over the last 4 years is the more SKUs you have, the better. So, along with our website redesign, we have a mandate, or I give myself a mandate to introduce minimum of 2 completely new products within the bottle cutting space every year. And we've done additional Kickstarters with those. Some we haven't Kickstarted. And SKUs are really the key to longevity. If I was selling just the cutter, once the person buys the cutter, they got the cutter and they can do what they want. But we're constantly pushing the envelope of what else can you do with this thing. And in the years we've done diamond sanding pads that have amazing reviews, and so those are selling really well. And we've done lights, we've done candle kits. And then this year, what we're doing and launching in the next couple months, just before the holidays, is we're doing a whole new category called Kinkajou projects. And in the Kinkajou projects, it's all these amazing things you see on Pinterest that you might want to do, but you think, where am I going to get that piece of hardware? Like, I don't have a plug that looks like that to do this. So what we've done is we've gone through the Pinterest world and just kind of curated some of the best ideas that we've seen and built kits around those. So now you can buy, you want to make that, here's the kit for it. Right? And these kits are not expensive, but they do require a Kinkajou. So it kind of helps drive Kinkajou sales. Also helps remind people, hey, you own a Kinkajou, maybe you want to do something new with it. So, but I think adding products, if your goal is to make a lifelong business out of this thing, and you more SKUs the better, and relevant SKUs. Obviously you can't sell just anything, but keep piling on the SKUs. And the more stuff you invent yourself, the better margins are and things like that.
Now, I want to talk about being an entrepreneur a little bit because you've done that your whole life, and you used to work these crazy, ridiculous hours. And now, being an entrepreneur and starting BottleCutting.com has allowed you to cut back on those hours somewhat. Not to say that you don't still work a ton of hours, but as other entrepreneurs look at what you did, and with your history, and experience, what advice would you give people who want to become entrepreneurs?
So, I've been an entrepreneur since my early 20s, and I've, a lot of the businesses I've had, they're entrepreneurial businesses, but they did require those many hours. And I think a lot of the businesses where I used to work like that were mostly because I was thinking locally, or I was trying to do something in my city, or maybe, in my region. But as soon as you start thinking bigger, like the world, the audience obviously is massive now, and it's the example I give to a lot of the people I mentor is, if I had tried to launch the Kinkajou in my home city, odds are it probably would have failed. I could have put in a bunch of stores and did workshops, and it might have failed. And then I probably said, okay, well, this doesn't work, so I'm going to move on. But as soon as you start opening up the world, you really, obviously, the world gets bigger, the audience size, and even if you sell something that you think is extremely niche, you might have 1 million people out there that would be interested in buying it. Well, when you're able to manufacture something in Asia and sell it directly, obviously margins are way better than most businesses. So if you actually have a product that you think you can sell 1 million of, something like that, might be able to fund the rest of your life.
Wow. Well, and you've also mentored people, and you take great pride in mentoring people. The people you have mentored, have you partnered with any of them on any business propositions, on any products?
No, so I've had lots of offers. How about you help me partner, and I'll give you a piece of equity. And I just what I know from experience is while my business is set up now, and I enjoy great hours. There's a lot of work in the front end, and you need to be passionate about what it is you're doing, because I feel if you're not, you're just going to get either bored, or real life is going to get in the way, and you're going to be tired at night. You're going to go to bed instead of working on your thing because you're not passionate about it. And I have yet to come across an idea where I'm passionate about this person's idea, where I think, oh my God, this could be massive. So I'd rather just mentor them, and I don't charge for that. It's just I'm a big believer in paying it forward, and if it works out for them, great. I've mentored lots of people, and most people have never even got to the Kickstarter phase. They have the prototype, but they didn't pull the trigger on it. And then I have others who have, like, one example I give is someone I talked to really early on, and he used to work at Best Buy, and he invented something, and now he makes his sales of $3-4 million a year. He's got a great condo. His life has completely changed.
We're talking to Patrick Lahoux here on the Amazon Fanatics program. He is the founder and CEO of BottleCutting.com. It's a really, really cool device. You're going to want to check it out. Great for making glassware, great for making gifts, crafts things. It's just a very, very cool product. Now, we're going to go back to Kickstarter again because you just mentioned it. There's a lot of people on Kickstarter, and it's a very, very crowded marketplace. What do you think people are doing wrong, and what should they do to kind of stand out?
So one thing about Kickstarter, it's changed a lot. When I launched my first Kickstarter almost 4 years ago, there might have been 400 or 500 active projects across all categories. Now I think the number might be 10,000. So it's extremely saturated, and now it's even harder to get people's attention to look at your product or idea. The second thing that is kind of an unfortunate reality about Kickstarter now is that the people, whenever you see this, someone raised $1 million on Kickstarter, it usually wasn't someone working who had an idea and built it in his garage. It's now these massive teams of engineers and design experts, and it's like a lot of companies have clued in, like, oh wow, this Kickstarter is a great place for us to launch new products. And some companies have launched dozens and dozens of Kickstarters and made like, you know, $500,000 on every single one of them. So the level of fit and finish on products now on Kickstarter is way high. Like my when I did my Kickstarter, I had Lego wheels in my cutter, right? It's like, you know, it was a 3D printed model with Lego wheels. It wasn't fancy, and it was able to do that. I feel like if I did that today, it might not get the same reception. So it's just an unfortunate truth about Kickstarter now is you really have to up your game. And what I tell people that I mentor is, look, don't try and, first of all, don't, if you can help it, don't jump into a space that's super competitive. Like, don't try and make another iPhone case, because everybody's making iPhone cases, you know, and stick with, if it's going to be your first product you've ever done, you know, try to minimize the moving parts, or don't get into software, hardware, electricity. There's a lot of great product. Like the holy grail of a product would be something plastic, thin, weighs nothing, stick it in an envelope and offer free shipping. You know, if you can come up with that, oh, you have no headaches. You know, it's nice and simple. But if your idea has motors and screens and like, it's a whole other level of expertise. And that's when you start needing teams. So yeah, if it's your first one, keep it small, something simple, even if it's just get your feet wet in the product industry.
It's funny when people approach us to talk about our influencers repping their product, and the first thing we say to them is well, what's your product? Because we can't recommend anything with batteries, with plugs, with power, anything on the electric side. You want to avoid, because you have no control over the factory, you have no control over the parts, especially early on as a seller, and you're sitting on just an absolute ton of returns. Plus, on the flip side, then you have the situation where you're talking about the Kickstarter thing. Small companies, or people pretending to be small companies. We almost started working with a big company. It was nearly 300 people, run by a bunch of MIT grads and engineering experts, and they wanted to get a product on Kickstarter that looked like it was a 4-person startup company. Let's pretend we're bootstrapped, and we're like, guys, you better be good. You're MIT grads. It didn't fit, and so we just thought that was kind of crazy. So the last question, Patrick, as we wrap up the Amazon Fanatics program interview today, what are your go-to apps and technologies that have made your life as an entrepreneur and a businessman easier, and what would you recommend to other people?
So automation, any app that can automate something, those are our go-to apps. We use a ticketing system called Freshdesk. I think my subscription costs me $19 a month or something, and it runs, we get about 200 emails a day, and everything's run through there, and it's a nice tracking system to keep everybody accountable. So definitely you need something like that. We use Dropbox. Obviously most people use that. And then apps, some of our go-to apps are mostly on Shopify. We recently, a little backstory here. Back in July, we had a video on Insider Design just kind of go viral. We didn't they contacted us, said, "Hey, do you mind if we make a video of your stuff?" We're like, "Sure, no problem, that'd be great." We didn't really know what was going to happen, and I think that video got something like 10 million views in 2 days. Our store exploded. We had holiday sales in the first week of July, and what was crazy about that is everything happened so fast that we normally review orders for fraud and things like this. Well, it was happening so fast that we kind of got caught up in the moment, and we didn't have the proper systems in place to monitor against fraud. And we probably took a $20,000 hit on fraud in like 4 days. Yeah, and it's so lesson learned, expensive. But now we use an app called Sabuno, and it does really well. And we use another app called Riskified, which between those two apps, I think we will now minimize. And since we've been using them, we've caught a lot of people. But I think as soon as you have something go viral, or as soon as you make it, if you're doing well, you start attracting attention. All sorts of people who are in this business of using fraudulent credit cards. So yeah, so that's definitely. And now I tell everybody, if you're going to get into this business, work on that fraud prevention before you have this massive something go viral, because when it happens, you might hit 5,000 sales in one day. You don't have it's happening so fast. You don't have the mental capacity or even the resources to go and start authorizing every single one of these orders. It just happens. So that's definitely something everyone should have in place.
That is some excellent advice. Patrick, you've been really generous with your time today. I greatly appreciate it. Some very, very informative things, a couple roadmap things people should listen to and follow. Want to thank you again. Once again, that is Patrick Lahoux, bottlecutting.com. Check out the site. Get the product, especially for the holiday season. I think you're going to be impressed with how well it works, and certainly with the kind of gifts and cool knickknacks you'll be able to make for friends and family while saving yourself money and looking excellent. Patrick, thank you, and have a great day.